The morning sun glinted off the water as Marcus watched two women in matching designer swimwear claim his family's dock like conquering queens. "This is public property now," the blonde one declared, her manicured finger jabbing toward the NO. "Trespassing sign." Little did they know, their brand new hot tub, the crown jewel of their illegal takeover, was about to take an unexpected dive. Sometimes the best. Marcus Henley stood at his kitchen window, steam rising from his coffee mug as he watched the sunrise paint Lake Clearwater in shades of gold and amber. For 37 years, this view had been his sanctuary, the weathered dock stretching into the water like an old friend's outstretched hand, the small boathouse where he'd taught his daughter Emma to tie sailor's knots, the ancient oak tree whose roots had grown alongside his own memories. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma: "Hope you're enjoying your first week of retirement, Dad. Don't get too lazy, winky face." Marcus smiled, typing back, "Day 6 of freedom. Still figuring out what to do with myself." The truth was, he'd been dreading this moment for months. 43 years at the county planning office, and now what? Golf. Garden club. The lake property had been in his family for generations, passed down from his grandfather who'd built the original cabin in 1952. Maybe he'd finally have time to restore the old rowboat, or rebuild the dock stairs that had been creaking for the past decade. He was contemplating a second cup of coffee when movement on his dock caught his eye. Two women stood at the end of his private pier, both blonde, both wearing expensive-looking athletic wear that screamed a suburban fitness influencer. The taller one, maybe 40, with the kind of aggressive tan that came from a salon, was pointing at various sections of the dock while the shorter one nodded enthusiastically, her phone constantly raised to snap photos. Marcus set down his mug and stepped onto his back porch. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice carrying across the water. "That's private property." The tall blonde turned, her smile so practiced it looked painted on. "Oh, hi there. I'm Brittany Walsh, and this is my sister Tiffany. We are from the Lakeshore Community Development Group. We are just doing a little assessment." "Assessment of what?" Marcus walked down the stone path toward his dock, his morning slippers crunching on the gravel. The closer he got, the more details he noticed: a clipboard in Tiffany's hands, measuring tape, and what looked like official-looking documents in a plastic folder. "Well," Brittany said, her voice carrying that particular tone of someone used to getting her way, "we've been working with the county on a community access initiative. This dock has been identified as a potential public access point." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Public access? This is my property. My family has owned this land for over 70 years. Tiffany finally looked up from her phone, her eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses. "Actually, according to our research, there's been a significant error in the property line documentation. The dock and approximately 15 feet of your shoreline are actually within the public trust zone." "That's impossible." Marcus's voice was sharp now. "I have the deeds, the surveys, everything." "Things change," Brittany said with a shrug. That was somehow both casual and threatening. "Property law is complicated. We've been working with the county assessor's office to correct these historical oversights." The county assessor's office? Marcus's former workplace. He'd worked there for 4 decades, knew every surveyor, every clerk, every bureaucrat who'd ever touched a property document. This was news to him. "I'm going to need to see some documentation," he said, extending his hand toward the folder. Tiffany clutched it protectively. "This is preliminary paperwork. Nothing official yet. But we wanted to get started on the community planning process." "Community planning for what?" Brittany's smile widened. "A public recreation area. We are thinking picnic tables, a small pavilion, maybe a boat launch. Really transform this little dead space into something the whole community can enjoy." Dead space. Marcus had proposed to his late wife Sarah on this dock. Had taught Emma to fish from these very boards. Had scattered Sarah's ashes from the end of the pier just 2 years ago, watching them settle into the lake like a promise to return. "This isn't dead space," he said quietly. "This is my home." "Of course it is," Tiffany said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "And you'll still have your house, your yard. We are just talking about optimizing the waterfront usage for the greater good." Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. Get off my property. Actually, Brittany said, consulting her clipboard, we have a preliminary use permit. Nothing final, but it gives us permission to conduct surveys and assessments. She held up a document that looked official enough from a distance. From who? The county, of course. Like I said, we've been working very closely with them. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling the sheriff. Go ahead, Tiffany said, not looking up from her measurements. Deputy Morrison is actually a friend of ours. He's very supportive of community development initiatives. The casual mention of Morrison's name hit Marcus like a slap. Tom Morrison had been Emma's classmate in high school, had dated her briefly. Senior year. He'd know this property, know Marcus's family history with it. Still, Marcus dialed. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Sheriff's Department, Morrison speaking. Tom, it's Marcus Henley. I've got 2 women on my dock claiming they have some kind of county permit. Oh, hey, Mr. Henley. Yeah, Brittany mentioned they might be doing some assessment work around there. Something about the community access project. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. You know about this? Just what Brittany told me. Look, I know it's probably a surprise, but these property line disputes happen all the time. My advice? Work with them. The county's trying to be progressive about lake access, and fighting it might just make things harder for everyone. Tom. You know my family's history with this property. I do, and I respect that. But I also know the county's got lawyers and you don't want to get into a legal battle you can't win. Just hear them out, okay? The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, feeling like he'd just been punched in the gut. How had this happened? How had 2 strangers waltzed onto his property with official-looking papers and the sheriff's blessing? Everything sorted out. Brittany asked sweetly when he walked back toward the dock. What exactly do you want? Like I said, we are just doing preliminary assessments. But since you are here, maybe we could discuss the timeline. Timeline for what? Tiffany looked up from her measuring tape. Well, the community access area will need to be cleared by August 15th. That's when the contractors come in to start building the pavilion. August 15th. That's 6 weeks away. I know it seems fast, Brittany said, but these community development grants have very specific timelines. Use it or lose it, you know. Marcus felt his world tilting. What about my boathouse? My boat? The boathouse will have to go, obviously. But there's a public boat launch just 3 miles down the lake. Very convenient. That boathouse has been in my family for 70 years. And now it'll serve the whole community for the next 70, Tiffany said, as if she'd just announced the cure for cancer. Think of it as a legacy expansion. Marcus walked to the end of his dock, looking out over the water he'd called home his entire life. The lake stretched endlessly, dotted with other docks, other families who'd been here for generations. Were they all getting visits from the Walsh sisters? Were they all about to lose their heritage to community development? I want to see the actual permits, he said, turning back to face them. The real ones, not just your clipboard notes. Brittany and Tiffany exchanged a look. Of course, Brittany said. We'll have copies sent to you by the end of the week. No. I want to see them now. Like I said, these are preliminary documents. The official paperwork is still being processed. Marcus felt his patience evaporating. Then you can come back when you have official paperwork. Mr. Henley, Tiffany said, her voice taking on a harder edge, I don't think you understand this situation. This is happening whether you cooperate or not. We are trying to be nice about it, work with you, but the county has already approved the project. Your cooperation makes it easier for everyone, but it's not required. Get off my property. Brittany sighed dramatically. Fine. But we'll be back tomorrow to continue our assessment. And just so you know, interfering with county business is a misdemeanor. We'd hate to have to involve law enforcement. They gathered their materials with the practiced efficiency of people who'd done this before. As they walked up the path toward The main road. Marcus heard Tiffany talking on her phone. Yes, is being difficult. No, just the usual property owner denial. We'll need to accelerate the timeline. They disappeared around the corner, leaving Marcus standing alone on his dock, feeling like a stranger in his own home. He pulled out his phone and called Emma. Dad. What's wrong? You sound terrible. Emma, I need you to do something for me. Can you pull the property records for the lake house? Everything, deeds, surveys, tax records, all of it. Of course. What's going on? Marcus told her about the Walsh sisters, about the permits, about Morrison's casual dismissal of his concerns. With each detail, Emma's voice grew more alarmed. Dad, this. Marcus hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in his basement office, surrounded by boxes of files that most people would consider mind-numbing bureaucratic garbage. Property surveys, zoning amendments, permit applications, the paper trail of 43 years spent protecting people's most valuable asset, their homes. At 6:47 a.m., his phone rang. Dad. Emma's voice was tight with concern. I've been up all night pulling records. We need to talk. I'm in the basement. Come on down when you get here. Marcus heard her car in the driveway 20 minutes later, followed by the slam of the front door and Emma's familiar footsteps on the stairs. His daughter appeared in the doorway looking like she'd driven straight through from Chicago without stopping, coffee-stained clothes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Jesus, Dad. You look like hell. Feel like it too. Marcus gestured to the chaos around him. But I found something. Emma set her laptop on the only clear corner of his desk. Me too. The Walsh sisters don't exist. What do you mean? I mean Brittany and Tiffany Walsh have no property records in this county. No business licenses. No tax filings. The Lakeshore Community Development Group isn't registered with the state. It's a ghost organization. Marcus felt a surge of vindication mixed with anger. I knew something was off. Look at this. He spread out a series of documents across his desk. These are the original property surveys from 1952 when my grandfather bought the land. These are the updated surveys from 1987 when we added the boathouse. And these, he held up a thick folder, are every single permit, variance, and zoning change for this property going back 7 decades. Emma leaned over his shoulder, studying the papers. The dock is definitely on your property. Like, not even close to being questionable. It gets better. I called my friend Janet at the county assessor's office this morning. She's been there 30 years and she's never heard of any community access initiative. There's no public trust zone expansion, no eminent domain proceedings, nothing. Then how did they get Deputy Morrison to back them up? Marcus's expression darkened. I think they didn't. I think they are counting on people not calling their bluff. Emma pulled up something on her laptop. I did some digging on social media. Found them. She turned the screen toward Marcus. Brittany Walsh, age 39, married to real estate developer Richard Walsh. Tiffany Walsh Morrison, age 36, married to Morrison, Marcus breathed. Tom Morrison. Your Deputy Morrison has a wife named Tiffany who happens to be Brittany's sister. And check this out, they've been posting about their lake house project for months. Look at these photos. Marcus stared at the screen. Photos of lakefront properties, before and after shots of docks being torn down and replaced with elaborate entertainment areas. Hot tubs, fire pits, outdoor kitchens. All captioned with hashtags like hashtag #lakelife, hashtag upgrade complete, hashtag dreamdock. They are not building a public access area, Emma said quietly. They are building their own private resort. On my property. Marcus's voice was barely controlled. Using fake permits and a crooked sheriff's deputy. Dad, this is fraud. Criminal fraud. We need to call the state police, the FBI, no. Marcus stood up, his mind racing. Not yet. If we go legal right now, it becomes a he said she said situation. We need proof of their actual intentions. What do you mean? Marcus walked to his window, looking out at the lake. They are coming back today to continue their assessment. Let them. But this time, we are going to be ready. Emma followed his gaze. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to give them exactly what they want. Cooperation. Enthusiasm, even. Let them think they've won. Dad, you're scaring me. Marcus turned back to her, and Emma saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before, not anger, not frustration, but the cold calculation of someone who'd spent decades outmaneuvering people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Emma, do you remember what I used to tell you about dealing with bullies? Give them enough rope to hang themselves. Exactly. The Walsh sisters think they are dealing with a confused old man who doesn't understand the system. They have no idea that I helped design half the protections they are trying to circumvent. Emma was quiet for a moment. What do you need me to do? I need you to be my secret weapon. Keep digging into their background, their finances, their real estate dealings. I want to know every property they've ever touched, every permit they've ever pulled, every corner they've ever cut. And you? I'm going to let them think they are winning. I'm going to be the cooperative property owner who's finally seen the light about community development. And while they are congratulating themselves on their brilliant manipulation, I'm going to be documenting every single illegal thing they do. Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Tom Morrison isn't the only law enforcement officer in this county. And his wife's fraud scheme is about to become very public. At 10:30 a.m., the Walsh sisters returned. This time, they brought equipment, surveying tools, a small excavator on a trailer, and two men in work clothes who looked like they were ready to start construction immediately. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as they set up their operation on his dock. Then he took a deep breath, put on his most defeated expression, and walked outside. Good morning, he called out, his voice carefully crafted to sound resigned. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. Brittany looked up from her clipboard, surprised. Oh. Mr. Henley. We weren't expecting. I talked to my daughter last night. She's a lawyer, you know. She helped me understand the situation better. Tiffany paused in her measurements. Oh. She explained that fighting the county is expensive and usually pointless. She thinks I should cooperate, maybe even try to work with you on the design. The sisters exchanged a look of barely concealed triumph. That's very wise, Brittany said. Community development projects work so much better when everyone's on the same page. I was wondering, Marcus said, pulling out his phone, if you could walk me through the timeline again. I want to make sure I understand what's happening. When? For the next hour, Marcus played the role of the reluctant but cooperative property owner. He asked detailed questions about their plans, nodded at their explanations, and even offered suggestions for the community pavilion. All while his phone recorded every word. The hot tub will go right here, Tiffany said, pointing to the end of his dock. 8-person capacity, with a view of the sunset. Hot tub? Marcus asked. I thought this was going to be a public access area. Well, yes, Brittany said quickly. The hot tub is part of the Community Wellness Initiative. Open to all residents, of course. Of course. And the outdoor kitchen. Community grilling area. Very popular in modern lake developments. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. And the construction crew, they are starting this week. Tomorrow, actually, Tiffany said. We got the permits expedited. Through your contact at the county. Exactly. Sometimes it pays to know people. Marcus smiled. It certainly does. What the Walsh sisters didn't know was that Emma was also recording, positioned in the boathouse with a high-definition camera that captured every gesture, every careless admission, every moment of their growing confidence. They also didn't know that Marcus had already contacted the actual county commissioner, the Rail Zoning Board, and the state attorney general's office. By noon, the Walsh sisters would be dealing with more than just a confused retiree. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He wanted them to fully commit to their scheme before he pulled the rug out from under them. I have to ask, he said, his voice carefully casual, what happens if someone complains about the project? If they say it's not really public access? Who would complain? Brittany laughed. This is clearly an improvement to the property. And besides, once construction starts, complaints don't really matter. Possession is 9/10 of the law. That's what I figured. And Deputy Morrison will handle any misunderstandings. Tom's been very supportive, Tiffany said with a smug smile. He understands that community development sometimes requires tough decisions. Marcus nodded. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to explain everything. When do you think the hot tub will be installed? End of the week, Brittany said. It's being delivered Thursday. Perfect. I'll make sure to stay out of the way. As Marcus walked back to his house, he felt his phone buzzing with text messages. Emma had been busy. Found their bank records. They've done this before. 3. Other properties in the past 2 years. Morrison's financial records show unexplained deposits coinciding with each property seizure. State AG's office very interested in our recordings. They want to meet this afternoon. Marcus smiled as he read the messages. The Walsh sisters had just made their biggest mistake. They'd assumed that being married to a corrupt deputy made them untouchable. They were about to learn that in a county where half the government workers owed their jobs to Marcus Henley's recommendations, loyalty ran deeper than marriage. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Henley. This is State Investigator Patricia. Chen. I understand you have some information about a property fraud scheme. Marcus looked out his window at the Walsh sisters, who were now taking selfies on his dock, champagne glasses raised in celebration of their latest conquest. Yes. He said quietly. I believe I do. We are on our way. State Investigator Patricia Chen arrived at 2:15 p.m. in an unmarked sedan, followed by 2 vehicles from the State Attorney General's office and a van from the county's Fraud Investigation Unit. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as the professional, quiet chaos of a major investigation began to unfold. Chen was a small woman with steel-grey hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. She sat at Marcus's kitchen table, listening to his recordings while 2 other investigators set up equipment in his basement office. Mr. Henley, she said after the second recording finished, how long have you been documenting this? Since yesterday morning. But I've been suspicious since the moment they showed up. Your instincts were correct. We've been tracking the Walsh sisters for 8 months, but they've been careful. Very careful. Until now. Emma looked up from her laptop. What do you mean? Previous victims were elderly, isolated, or too intimidated to fight back effectively. The Walsh sisters would move fast, get what they wanted, and disappear before anyone could mount a serious challenge. But this time they picked the wrong target, Marcus finished. Chen smiled grimly. Exactly. Your documentation is the most comprehensive evidence we've seen. The recordings, the financial trail your daughter uncovered, the pattern of corruption, it's exactly what we need to bring down their entire operation. What about Deputy Morrison? He's been suspended pending investigation. Internal Affairs has been watching him for months, waiting for enough evidence to move. Your wife's admission about his support was the final piece. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction. So what happens now? Now we let them dig their own grave a little deeper. I understand they are planning to install a hot tub tomorrow. That's what they said. Perfect. We'll let them commit to the installation, document the destruction of your property, and then move in. The more evidence of actual damage, the stronger our case becomes. Emma frowned. But that means letting them actually damage Dad's dock. Sometimes, Chen said, you have to let the criminals commit the crime to prove they are criminals. The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of heavy machinery. Through his bedroom window, he could see a crane positioning a massive hot tub at the end of his dock. The Walsh sisters stood nearby, directing the operation like generals commanding an army. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Chen, we are in position. Let them finish. By noon, the installation was complete. The hot tub sat at the end of Marcus's dock like a monument to theft, its jets already running, steam rising from the heated water. Brittany and Tiffany had changed into bikinis and were posing for photos, champagne glasses in hand. "This is perfect," Brittany's voice carried across the water. "The sunset views are going to be incredible. I can't wait to show Mom," Tiffany laughed. "She's going to die when she sees what we've done with the place." Marcus walked down to the dock, playing his role as the defeated property owner. "It looks impressive, doesn't it?" Brittany beamed. "We spared no expense. This is a $40,000 unit." $40,000. Marcus tried to look impressed rather than horrified. "Worth every penny. The community is going to love it." "Speaking of the community," Marcus said carefully, "when do you think other residents will start using it?" Tiffany and Brittany exchanged a look. "Well," Tiffany said slowly, "there might be a brief adjustment period. You know, to make sure everything's working properly." "How long of an adjustment period?" "Oh, just a few months. Maybe through the summer. We want to make sure the systems are fully tested before we open it to the public." Marcus nodded. "That makes sense. And during the testing period, who exactly will be doing the testing?" "Well, we will, of course. And our family. Maybe a few close friends. You understand, we need to be thorough." "Of course." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Mind if I take a photo? For my daughter?" "Absolutely." Marcus snapped several photos of the sisters posing with their community hot tub, making sure to capture the champagne, the celebratory mood, and the obvious personal enjoyment of what was supposed to be a public facility. What the Walsh sisters didn't notice was the small, professional camera hidden in the boathouse, or the unmarked van parked on the road with a clear view of the dock, or the fact that every word they'd spoken in the past hour had been recorded by investigators who were documenting the most brazen case of property theft the county had ever seen. At 3:30 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. "Mr. Henley. This is Officer Janet Rodriguez with the State Fraud Investigation Unit. We need to speak with the individuals on your property." Marcus looked at the Walsh sisters, who were now lounging in the hot tub, their phones presumably waterproof as they continued taking selfies. "I'll let them know," he said. Marcus walked to the edge of the dock. "Ladies, there are some people here who want to talk to you." "What people?" Brittany asked, not looking up from her phone. "Law enforcement." Both sisters froze. "What kind of law enforcement?" Tiffany's voice was suddenly sharp. "The kind that investigates fraud." For a moment, the only sound was the bubbling of the hot tub jets. Then Brittany slowly stood up, water dripping from her designer swimsuit. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said. "We have permits." "No," Marcus said quietly. "You don't." The next few minutes unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Investigators appeared from seemingly nowhere, from the boathouse, from the van, from the woods on either side of the property. The Walsh sisters found themselves surrounded by badge-wearing professionals who had been watching their every move for hours. Brittany Walsh and Tiffany Walsh Morrison, Patricia Chen announced, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, theft by deception, and criminal impersonation of county officials." "You can't arrest us," Brittany sputtered. "We have permits." "We have authorization." "From who?" Chen asked calmly. "From the county. From the development office. From your husband, Deputy Morrison, who's currently in custody facing charges of corruption and conspiracy." Tiffany went pale. "Tom's in custody. As of an hour ago. Along with your associate Richard Walsh and the contractor who's been helping you steal property across 3 counties. Marcus watched as the reality of their situation began to sink in. The Walsh sisters had gone from celebrating their latest conquest to facing potential prison time in less than 5 minutes. "This is harassment," Brittany said, but her voice lacked conviction. "We were invited onto this property. We were working with the owner." "You were," Chen agreed. "Mr. Henley has been very cooperative. He's been documenting your activities for us since the moment you arrived." Both sisters turned to stare at Marcus, who gave them a small wave. You see, Marcus said, his voice conversational, I spent 43 years at the county planning office. I know every permit, every procedure, every legal way to acquire property. What you two have been doing isn't just illegal, it's amateur. The community development story. Emma's voice came from the boathouse as she emerged with a camera. Dad saw through that immediately. The fake permits. He wrote the procedures those permits would have to follow. The county contacts. He knows everyone who actually works there. Brittany's face was cycling through emotions, anger, fear, disbelief. You set us up. I documented your crimes, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. And now, Chen added, you're going to help us recover the property you've stolen from other families. Because this hot tub. It's just the beginning of what we are going to take back. As the Walsh sisters were led away in handcuffs, Marcus stood on his dock, and watched the investigators begin the process of documenting the scene. The hot tub would be evidence until the trial was over, but eventually it would be removed and his property would be restored. Emma joined him at the end of the dock, both of them looking out over the lake. I can't believe they thought they could outsmart you, she said. They didn't know who I was, Marcus replied. They saw a retired old man and assumed that meant helpless. They never bothered to ask what I'd retired from. Still, Dad. A fraud ring. Property theft. This is like something out of a movie. Marcus smiled, thinking about Sarah, about the life they'd built on this lake, about the generations of his family who'd called this place home. Sometimes, he said, the good guys win. But as he spoke, Marcus's phone was buzzing with messages. The Walsh sisters' arrest was just the beginning. The investigation had uncovered a network of corruption that reached far beyond 2 fraudulent sisters and 1 crooked deputy. And Marcus Henley, the retired county planning officer who just wanted to enjoy his lake house in peace, was about to find himself at the center of the biggest political scandal the county had ever seen. The hot tub was evidence now. But it was also a symbol, a $40,000 monument to the hubris of people who thought they could steal from families and get away with it. The lake was calm that evening, reflecting the sunset in shades of gold and pink. Marcus sat on his dock, his real dock, and watched the water lap against the posts his grandfather had driven into the lake bed 70 years ago. Some things, he thought, were worth fighting for. Some things were worth winning. 3 days after the arrests, Marcus's quiet retirement had become a distant memory. His kitchen table was covered with case files, his phone hadn't stopped ringing, and Emma had temporarily moved back home to help manage what had become a full-scale investigation into countywide corruption. Dad, you need to see this, Emma said, looking up from her laptop with a grim expression. The Walsh sisters weren't just stealing property. They were laundering money through fake development projects. Marcus set down his coffee and leaned over her shoulder. The screen showed a complex web of financial transactions, shell companies, and property transfers that painted a picture far more sinister than simple theft. How much are we talking about? Preliminary estimates. $3.7 million over the past 5 years. And that's just what we can track. The doorbell rang. Marcus opened it to find Patricia Chen, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man in an expensive suit with the kind of bearing that suggested federal authority. Mr. Henley, Chen said, I'd like you to meet Special Agent Robert Kim from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Kim stepped forward, his handshake firm but brief. Mr. Henley, what you've uncovered here goes far beyond local property fraud. We are looking at a criminal enterprise that may have connections to organized crime. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Organized crime. The Walsh sisters were small players in a much larger operation. The money laundering, the network of corrupt officials, the systematic targeting of elderly and vulnerable property owners, this has all the hallmarks of a sophisticated criminal organization. Emma joined them at the door. How sophisticated? They've been operating in 12 counties across 3 states, Kim said. Always the same pattern: identify vulnerable properties, create fake development companies, bribe local officials, and steal the land. Then they either sell it to legitimate developers or use it to clean dirty money through construction projects. Marcus shook his head. And I thought they were just greedy. They were, Chen said. But they were also working for people who are much more dangerous than greedy. Kim pulled out a tablet, showing Marcus a photo of a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes. Vincent Torino. He's been using development scams to launder money for the Torino crime family for over a decade. The Walsh sisters were his latest recruits. Are you saying my lake house was targeted by the mob? Essentially, yes. Your property was perfect for their needs: isolated, elderly owner, valuable waterfront location. They could either flip it for a huge profit or use it as a base for money laundering operations. Emma crossed her arms. So what happens now? Now, Kim said, we asked for your help. You've given us the evidence we need to bring down the Walsh sisters and Deputy Morrison. But we want the entire network. And that means we need you to help us find the other victims. Marcus looked out at his lake, where the confiscated hot tub still sat as evidence of the crime. What do you need me to do? We need you to help us identify other properties that might have been targeted. With your background in county planning, you'll be able to spot the patterns that other investigators might miss. And if I say no? Kim's expression grew serious. Then Torino's people will find another way to claim their money. And other families will lose their homes. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in a conference room at the FBI field office, surrounded by case files and photographs of properties across the region. Each one told the same story: elderly owners, mysterious development companies, corrupt officials, and families who'd lost everything to a sophisticated fraud network. This one, Marcus said, pointing to a file. Lake Morrison. The permit applications don't match the standard format for that county. Someone forged them. Agent Kim made a note. We'll contact the property owner. And this one, Marcus continued, pulling out another file. The surveyor's seal is wrong. I know the surveyor, he's been dead for 3 years. Jesus, Emma muttered from across the table. How many families have they destroyed? At least 47 that we know of, Chen said. Probably more. As they worked through the files, a pattern emerged that was even more disturbing than simple theft. The Torino network had been systematically targeting families during vulnerable periods: recent deaths, job losses, medical emergencies. They'd weaponized people's grief and desperation. This is sick, Emma said, staring at a photo of an elderly woman who'd lost her family farm to a fake conservation easement. They are not just criminals. They are predators. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: stop digging or you'll regret it. He showed the message to Kim, who immediately called for a tech specialist. We expected this, Kim said. Torino's people know we are closing in. They are getting desperate. Should I be worried? You should be careful. But you're not alone. We'll have agents watching your property around the clock. Marcus looked at Emma. Maybe you should go back to Chicago. Not happening, she said firmly. These people tried to steal our family's home. I'm not running. That evening, Marcus sat on his dock, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. The hot tub still bubbled nearby, a ridiculous monument to crime and corruption. But for the first time in days, he felt a sense of peace. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Henley. The voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent. My name is Vincent Torino. I believe we have some things to discuss. Marcus's blood ran cold. I don't think we do. Oh, but we do. You see, you've caused me considerable inconvenience. The Walsh sisters were useful employees and Deputy Morrison was a valuable asset. Now they are in custody and my business operations have been disrupted. Good. Torino chuckled. I admire your directness. But I'm afraid I can't allow this investigation to continue. It's bad for business. That's not up to you. Isn't it? You're a retired old man living alone on a lake. Accidents happen all the time. Boats sink. Docks collapse. Houses burn. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. Is that a threat? It's a business proposition. Walk away from this investigation and you can keep your pretty lake house. Continue helping the FBI and you might find yourself in need of a new home. If you're still around to need one. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, then at the lake that had been his family's sanctuary for generations. These people had tried to steal his home. Now they were threatening to destroy it, and him. He thought about his grandfather, who'd built the first cabin with his own hands. About his father, who'd expanded the property and passed it down with pride. About Sarah, who'd loved this place as much as he did. About Emma, who deserved to inherit something more than fear and ashes. Marcus stood up, walked to the end of his dock, and looked out over the water. The lake was calm, reflecting the last light of day like a mirror. Beautiful. Peaceful. Worth protecting. He pulled out his phone and dialed Agent Kim's number. Kim here. Agent Kim, this is Marcus Henley. I just got a phone call from Vincent Torino. There was a pause. What did he say? He threatened to kill me if I don't stop helping your investigation. Mr. Henley, I'm sorry. We can put you in protective custody. No, Marcus said firmly. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. And I'm not letting these people win. Sir, I understand your feelings, but, Agent Kim, I spent 43 years protecting people's property rights. I've seen what happens when criminals think they can intimidate honest people into silence. It doesn't end well for the criminals. Another pause. What are you saying? Marcus looked at the hot tub, still bubbling with stolen luxury, and smiled grimly. I'm saying it's time to end this. All of it. I want to help you take down the entire network. Mr. Henley, that's extremely dangerous. These people have killed before. Then it's time they learned what happens when they threaten the wrong family. As Marcus spoke, he didn't notice the small boat that had been drifting closer to his dock throughout the conversation. He didn't see the figure in dark clothing who'd been listening to every word. But Emma did. From the boathouse where she'd been organizing case files, she watched the intruder creep toward the dock. She saw the gun in his hand, saw him taking aim at her father's back. And she realized that the Walsh sisters had been just the beginning. The real war was about to start. The lake was no longer peaceful. It was about to become a battlefield.